Hello, dear friends. Here we are, 30 days of inner journey, your thought, your life. We're studying and discussing and opening our hearts for exercise, therapeutics of the good spirits. Emmanuel wrote in 1958, and this book was published soon after the writing of it through the medium Chico Xavier. Thought in Life. It was published in English first time in 2012 through the efforts of the Round Table Publishing, through Elsa Rossi, Jenna Duncan, many others. And the book is available today at the Spiritist Group of New York, sgny.org. For those who are still writing to us and willing to have a copy of it, please write to Jussara Korngold at the website of the sgny.org. Okay? We are studying this book to gain new tools. This book, as Emmanuel describes in its introduction, is a summary, a synopsis of the directives given to everyone who is prepared for a new incarnation, reincarnation. And this book was brought to us so we can also recall what the plan is all about. Why are we here? What do we need to do? How should we proceed? And Emmanuel begins by saying that everything begins in the mind. If we want to know what to do with our lives, first we need to know what to do with our thoughts. Many people ask this question: what do I do in my life? Don't begin outside. Emmanuel is telling us it begins within. It's in our minds. So what do we do with our thoughts? Begin by writing affirmations, laying out the plans, and then soon after, thoughts and feelings become words and actions, and then everything else is manifested. And then he explains to us that our will is the supervisor of our minds, the manager of our minds, of all of its departments. And through that feeling of being cooperating with God, we and everyone in our lives will be fulfilling what we need. So that's the reason why we need to instruct ourselves and educate ourselves, work, associating our minds with higher minds, and at the same time observing every little suggestion, how it's triggering emotions on us. And today is a special day. Everyone around the world is talking about the inauguration of the new president. How is this event triggering emotions in us? We need to observe. Let's not feel trapped to these temptations of sadness and depression, negativity. Let us raise ourselves above it all and build a new world, trusting that if God is allowing this, it's for a good reason. And let's not stay passive, but work where we need to work. And talking about work, today we're going to be studying chapter 17, which is about profession. Yesterday we started about vocation. Today, quite surprising, he unfolds a different chapter, profession. How interesting is this? Vocation and profession. Two different things that may have intersections, but not necessarily the same. Why not? Questions that we'll be addressing. But before we do, let us say hi to our dear friends here. Okay? Hello, Karina. How are you? And Tanya. Hello, Jussara. And Leia. Tanya, Jussara, Karina, and our dear Valeria as well. Flowers and hearts and prayers and lots of love, right, friends? Monica, Melissa. So, and Justino, friends, Let us read the chapter first. Let us have ears to really understand what is about to be laid out. This chapter is quite a surprise to us, we would say, because it develops in a direction that probably we don't expect. And that's good, because it's a sign we're learning something new. Shall we? Chapter 17. Profession, Thought and Life by Emmanuel through Chico Xavier. Through the various professions and the many contacts which they afford between people, the human race has created a vast network for the purpose of uplifting human dignity as a result of these self-giving actions. Repercussions of divine beauty are produced which open up new roads to the celestial kingdom. An honestly practiced profession, even when remunerated, induces people to respect the fulfillment of their duties. But selfless giving, which is one's sacrifice for the happiness of others, ennobles the spirit. That is why everyone feels the need to build a permanent altar in their hearts to true heroes. Selfless giving begins where duty ends. When practiced, it produces a reaction in the higher spheres that reaches down to humanity. An ordinary delinquent in prison inspires pity because of his suffering, but the pioneer of a noble cause, unjustly jailed in the same prison, elicits admiration, respect, and emulation. The friendly and conscientious administrator who scrupulously divides his earnings and spends his share honestly is an example of earthly virtue, but the person who works selflessly for the benefit of others is a messenger of heavenly virtues. A governess who receives a salary for her tender care of a child merits high regard and recognition. But a motherly heart, with its constant acts of self-sacrifice, is a fascinating and splendid example that emphasizes the glory of pure love. Thus, mathematicians who are claimed by the people and are adequately paid for their work are classified as scientists. But the scientists who are wholly committed to a project for peace and security of civilization, and who employ all their energy in complete oblivion of themselves to reach their goals, are regarded as benefactors. Humankind progresses forward and when faithful to their obligations. Through selfless giving, angels are drawn to them, thereby improving life in the world. Activities which transcend the everyday, monetarily compensated jobs are associated with those who no longer think of personal comfort, thereby attracting the mental reflexes of intelligent beings who work anonymously for love's sake, and who perceive the eternal arms of an incomprehensible divine God-like being. In this arena of unlimited moral devotion, where those who dedicate themselves to voluntary work, such as the genius, who sometimes carries heavy mental reflexes from her remote past and therefore suffers, we also find eminent clergy of all religions, gifted artists, and noble inventors of all nationalities, as well as devoted mothers, so often suffering, forgotten, and totally ignored throughout the world. Because of them, higher spirituality gradually descends to the human sphere without thought of compensation, fame, or gold. Through total detachment of self in helping others, the soul experiences the sublime mission of alignment with God's will, thus attracting the divine thought that works towards the polishing and ascension of humankind. How precious this, how surprising this chapter is. I am truly surprised. Why am I saying this? Because when you think of profession, you think that Emmanuel is going to lay out something completely different. We talked about vocation, and in the previous chapter, he told us about how we, when we put our resources to the works of God, how we are connected with His will. And when we use our resources egotistically, he says, we place ourselves above God. But that doesn't suffice. Emmanuel shares with us that the teachings of the spirits for us who are incarnating or reincarnating, we need a different awareness regarding profession. What is it? Let us ask this question. But before we do so, let's say hi to our friends. After all, this is an open classroom for all of us, right? And we all need to feel within it. Hello, Angelita and Adilson, Maria Edith. Hello, Guilherme and Justino. Thank you for being here with us, friends. Solange, thank you, friends. Let us stay connected tonight, meditating. What is profession for you? Is profession something that equals to monetary earnings? Because in this whole chapter, surprisingly, he says something different. What is it? Observe that from the first paragraph to the last, he uses one word, giving. He correlates profession with giving. Giving of what? Our abilities. Right? Giving of our abilities. But he says more. He is going to associate for us firsthand. This is unprecedented. He associates to us a new directive, because he says in the introduction, these are directives, guidelines for life, incarnated life. And he says, profession is more than the exercise of abilities that allow us to receive monetary earnings. Are you prepared for this new journey where we're going to see professions from a completely different angle? That's where we are. He begins by saying that through these various professions, humanity created a network for the purpose of uplifting human dignity. So he associates professionalism, and not the professionalism as an attitude, but this work on constantly being improved. Because profession is not about fulfilling a task or a duty, but it's about creating that pathway in which I refine my abilities, where I put my vocation at the disposal of people. It's a pathway of inner refinement. It's not a given, it's a conquest. We need to tell our children and our youth, are you expecting that your life is gonna miraculously gonna change overnight and you're gonna find yourself in an extraordinary ability and you're gonna go viral? No, we don't want to go viral. What do we want to do? We want to be useful. And our goal is to refine our abilities. So if we teach our children, our youth, that we are here to work until progress, to work until programs together with others, they will less often be frustrated, thinking that everything is at the click of a button. It's not a click away. There are no click away professions. Profession is the work, the refinement of our abilities. No wonder Emmanuel is telling us that through these various professions, we are dignifying our existence as human beings on the earth. So it's ennobling. Is it worthwhile working? And even if we are a housekeeper, when we excel, you know, it's so beautiful to see when people are so committed to their professions and their expertise. The expertise. You know, Emmanuel didn't use that word expertise back then in 1958 because it wasn't as used as we use nowadays. But he's talking about this, becoming experts in the field, which is dignifying, it's ennobling. When many people, there is this belief that we're wise when we know a little bit of everything. Actually, no. It's when we really funnel, we go deeper into the field of expertise. That is ennobling and humbling. You know, when we get a PhD, for example, you become an expert in a tiny little question. Is it valid? Of course it is. Because it's not about the goal of knowing that much only. It's about how we refined our intellectual abilities, our emotional and social abilities to achieve such goal. Because doing a PhD, people think that it's such a piece of cake. You sit at a lab and you study and everybody's so kind and loving. No, we're all humans. The problems you see in constructions, the problem you see in the streets, in the businesses of all sorts, you find the same human issues inside the scientific community. So when somebody completes a degree and graduates, they not only got knowledge, but they also overcome emotional obstacles. They've also overcome social obstacles and gained new emotional, social, spiritual, and intellectual abilities. We need to put those things together. Any field. So Emmanuel, then in the same paragraph, before he wraps it up, he begins by associating throughout the chapter this new concept as a result of these self-giving actions. Repercussions of divine beauty are produced, which open up new roads to the celestial kingdom. This is actually new to us. He associates the concept of beauty with profession. And it could be, for example, as we said, housekeeping, cooking, painting, anything. Somebody who comes to you and says, and you know, sometimes when I do laundry, we want to find out unique ways to get some stains off. And it's so good when you find somebody who is an expert in the field and says, you know, I found out that I am using this product. I'm like, oh, hallelujah, we found a product to get rid of a stain. The other day, Virginia stamped our whole couch. And I was like, oh my Lord, I'm gonna get these things off. Google, they're self-giving souls. Giving of themselves to teach others how to do this. Thank you very much. You may not know me, but you got my appreciation. You saved my life. Right? Hello, Greg Stewart. How are you? Marilda is sharing with us. Hello, Marilda. The beauty. Profissão, culto do dever. Profession. This cult to our duty. But Emmanuel is going to go one step ahead, Marilda. Very surprising. He says, self-giving actions that will create this divine beauty and open new roads to the celestial kingdom in our hearts. Surprise, surprise. In this refinement of our professions, in these self-worth movements, giving, we are harmonizing ourselves, because the concept of beauty in Spiritism, as Leon Denis says, equals to harmony, divine harmony. Beauty, the real concept of beauty, is attached to the concept of divine harmony. Let's keep it in mind. So surprising. And he says, yes, when somebody honestly practices his or her profession, they are to be respected. Okay? But he now, I think of all the sentences he lays it out, the affirmations, one that strikes the most is, selfless giving begins where duty ends. From now on, Emmanuel is going to lay out to us a new proposal. It's as if we are in the school of regeneration in the spiritual realm, preparing for a new reincarnation, and the superior teachers are telling us, you're not only going to reincarnate to fulfill your jobs and your daily duties to get your money and survive. Through your professions, you're going to do a bifold duty. One, to develop new intellectual, emotional, social, spiritual abilities. But two, you're going to learn how to give of yourself selflessly, going beyond the duties of the job. Yes. Are you surprised? Because that's what they are saying. It's not only about fulfilling the job description. It's about giving of ourselves selflessly. And what is this selfless giving? Because throughout these paragraphs, he repeats profession as these abilities that are given and shall be given ultimately selflessly. And you know, there are people who tell me, Vanessa, when we volunteer, people do it at their own time, not in a spiritist volunteer work. When we volunteer, we need to do what we need to do when the duty has to be done, not when we can. Oh yeah. If somebody tells me, oh, pick me, I want to do this work in the Spiritist Center, say, okay, you're welcome, but let me tell you, there are duties and rules and regulations. In our center, the Spirit Side of Virginia, we have rules and regulations for everything, written in a piece of paper. For past givers, for educators for children and youth, for people who give talks, for people who do anything, and we have consent forms also for people who volunteer, even to clean the set. Why? Because we want to be bureaucratic? No, I don't think so, because I don't think people feel that way. It's just to secure, as the Spirit say, in the Spirit's book, we need detailed instructions to learn how to comply with a particular order in the universe. Yes, we need to be thorough in our instructions. It's not about going there and clean in this way. Since the Spirit is out of Baltimore, we were given like instructions how we clean, which products we use. We give it to people who volunteer, saying, it's gonna be, oh, can I clean another day when I can? No. It has to be this day, together with the group. And in this mindset, it's an exercise. The Spirit Center is a school for the soul, where we learn to discipline ourselves, teamwork. Because on the earth, we're not team players yet. We're too rebellious. Too rebellious. No wonder people, very wrongly, were protesting in the streets of Washington, D.C. by breaking establishments without any reason. Even if they had a reason, it doesn't make any sense. Rebelliousness. We always think like Judas, that we know better than others. And we always think we're gonna be the leaders like Judas. We don't know how to team play. And team player doesn't mean you're gonna wait for somebody to tell you what to do. You're gonna do what you have to do without creating chaos. Without creating chaos. Right? We cannot create a chaos in the universe of God any longer. We're not gonna tell people to fulfill their duties by being rebellious, by being destructive. It's only when we are constructive that we actually can contribute, cooperate, learning to be co-pilots. That's our task here. And that's the reason why Emmanuel is telling us that selfless giving begins where duty ends. Selfless giving begins where duty ends. When practiced, it produces a reaction in the higher spheres that reaches down to humanity. He's saying that when you use your profession for selfless giving, you go beyond the call of your duty. You are connecting with higher spheres. Angelic forces, he's going to say in the next paragraphs. Exactly. And question for all of us. What is selfless giving? How often do we practice selfless giving in our daily lives? How often? Scale. Never, rarely, sometimes, often, or always. Or it's like this. People ask, Vanessa, can you give me a pencil? Okay, here it is. Or, oh, you can get it. Like this. No, go there. You can get it yourself. They are asking us to pass it to them. And we're saying, yeah, go there. Or, sure. And I pick it up. Oh, you want to keep it? Keep it, please. It's not about the giving, but how we give. Selfless giving is not only about giving, it's about how we give. We don't give because we want something returned to us. Some people say, But I am helping my employees. But they're gonna give you something back. That's true. I help my friends and family. Of course, they are always gonna return in some way and form. But how do we give? Do we give expecting them to give something in return, even if it's a thank you note? Or do we give just giving, saying, you know what? Nothing is mine. My energy is not mine. My time is not mine. My body is not mine. Nothing is mine. I am actually the butler of God on the earth. I am just taking care of God's things, including my body. Time is not mine. And then I give without waiting for a thank you note. I know people who volunteer, and you know, in the United States, so interesting. You will often volunteer, and sometimes people won't say anything. I remember how often we volunteered in Baltimore with our group at the Spirit Side of Baltimore. And people would come and say, but Vanessa, they don't even say thank you. And I said, you know, that's our challenge, to serve without receiving anything in return. And people from Brazil used to tell me, but you know, in Brazil it's so nice. You give and then you feel people like it. You feel you are important. I said, you see, this is not selfless giving. Because you're giving and you need to feel something in return. Wonderful that in the United States of America we can give and not expect anything. Learning to be sowers, that's what we are. You sow seeds of God, not even ours. So don't charge for it, because not ours. Just sow, throw it with love and kindness, and go. Don't stop and say, hello, seed. No sprouting. Oh my God. You see, it doesn't work. No wonder many centers in the United States or in the world are still doing the works in Portuguese, because they don't want to sow. They want to sow and demand a return. I want to see it sprouting. I want to see many people in the audience. This is not the role of a sower. When we sow and go. We sow and go. People can come and go, come and go. We are just the butlers. We open the door, say welcome, and we sow. The seed's not even ours. We're not supposed to do anything else but to keep sowing. That's why it's light. And Jesus said, life with him is light, easy. Why? Easy in the sense of you don't need to stay stuck waiting for anything, because it's between God and people. Our profession is an opportunity of selfless giving when we go past our duty. We go above, literally above and beyond the call of duty. That's when we fulfill our professions in the spiritist sense. Breathe in, right? Emmanuel, that's a lot. That's what we learn in the spiritual realm before we incarnate here. Go above the call of duty. A spiritist doesn't fulfill the profession simply. It always goes above and beyond. Above and beyond the call of duty. We not only go there and do what we have to do, but we give it with love, with kindness, without expecting anything in return, with joy. And people ask us, I remember at work, people say, but Vanessa, you're always a smile. I say, you know, why not? Smile when your heart is breaking. Smile, da 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 da. Yes. Smile, smile, smile. Even when there are tears rolling down our face. Not because we're faking it, but because life is a joy. Even when our expectations are not fulfilled. Thank God they are not, because if they were, probably we would be in trouble. Thank you, God, for not allowing us to get what we want, because probably we would just be stagnated in the same comfort zone. So when we go beyond it and our professions become selfless giving, that's when we're really fulfilling our duty, professionally speaking. And he says something quite amazing. The friendly and conscientious administrator who scrupulously divides his earnings and spends his share honestly is an example of earthly virtue. But the person who works selflessly for the benefit of others is a messenger of heavenly virtues. This is the course of the spiritual plane, the school of regenerations before we incarnate or reincarnate, telling us what to do. They are telling us. It's as if we can almost hear the teachers in the spiritual realm teaching us as we study this. When you incarnate, work without expecting anything in return. And help others. Your profession is a bridge to helping others. So I wake up and say, oh, today we have that meeting. But that meeting, I don't understand why do we have that meeting. I know why. It's an opportunity for us to help others. How? But I'm not the boss. I'm just going to be sitting there and listening and And I remember Mentor Joseph telling me during business meetings, Vanessa, he would say, can you please help us? And I was distracted. You know, when you just tune out, you're like, And he was like, can you please tune in again and open your heart, pray inside of your heart, helping us to help people too, because we're trying hard on this end, and if you know we're here and you don't open the door for us, what are you doing there? And I said, but Joseph, I'm fulfilling my duty to be here in this meeting. And he said, no, your duty is to help, even when people don't know that you're helping. They don't know. They'll never know. Maybe one day. And I learned this lesson with Mentor Joseph. And I remember one day we were in this meeting and I was clearly off. He asked me to tune in and he said, pay attention. And through the process, we identified mistakes that were being made. People were not paying attention. Neither was I. So how much not doing the good will affect us for the consequences of the good that was left undone, as says the spirits in the Spirit's book. And that's why they're saying we need to go beyond the call of duty. Because the call of duty on earth not necessarily feels in for everything that needs the good to be done. For the good that needs to be done. So what the manual is telling us is the rule of thumb. Do what you need to do to benefit others, even when it's above and beyond the call of your duty. That's to fulfill your profession on the earth. This daddy is sharing with us her mom's favorite poem, É Placer Ser Servir by Mistral. Thank you. I'm not aware of it, Liz Delia. If you can share a link later, maybe possible, we would like to learn from you. Thank you. And Tanya Stewart is saying, when we are open to serve with love, the good spirits will use us every day to help someone who is in need in any level. And you're so right. That's exactly the message. So he says, somebody like a babysitter who really cares for the child merits high regard and recognition. And twice in this chapter, he's going to refer to motherly sacrifice. And it can bring myself to tears because it's so true when he says, the sacrifice of a mom really emphasizes the glory of pure love. And later he says here to us how much we attract the good spirits by doing so. Today I was reading the news that CEO who was 63 years old and discarnated CEO of a company named Sarah Lee. She was 63, had a stroke and discarnated. And today in the Wall Street Journal, they were saying that in 1997, maybe, she quit. She was in another company and she quit her high job to take care of her 3 children who were 7, 8, and 10. And it was even in the news, Kate Couric interviewing her and asking her if she was telling the world that maybe women couldn't have it all. And she said, each mother is differently, but I'm saying yes, we can't have it all. We have to make choices. And to all the women out there, and because being a mom, as far as I know, is still about women. And the spirits are saying, when you sacrifice your ego, your immediate needs, your needs, to zeal, not care, not material care, but zeal for the life of that spirit that is incarnated, you're connected to the angels. You are. The rule of thumb, golden rule. If you were that child, what would you like that your mom and your dad, or your dads and your moms, it doesn't matter, do to you? I know many people who were cared for one-on-one by their mothers when they were children, and now they have children, they give their children to somebody else. And they think, but Vanessa, I have to work. Okay, be prepared, because when they become adolescents, that moment that you put aside on the hands of somebody else is going to come back. Scientifically and spiritist-wise, we already know that the minute they are born, they are incarnating, and we are responsible for the imprinting, emotional, intellectual, social, spiritual. Later, it's just about the harvest. What's gonna come after is our responsibility. So we need to pay close attention to it, friends. I know it seems like a broken record here, but the spirits are saying we really need to go back to the true parenting role, because that's where we change society. We change society when we educate, and education begins with love, selfless giving. Well, he's gonna say here that humankind progresses forward when faithful to their obligations. Okay, nowadays we already know many people have their duties to fulfill, they don't. So that's bad. meaning we don't progress when duties are not fulfilled. Look at the political chaos in the world when politicians don't fulfill what they have to fulfill. But what about us? Are we fulfilling what we have to fulfill? And here it says, through selfless giving, angels are drawn to them, thereby improving life in the world. You see? That's the recipe. We want to stay connected with the higher minds, the higher spirits. Do you? Why not? We need to give selflessly. And in the next paragraph, he's going to break it down to us. He says, selfless giving here, he's going to say in the next paragraph, is about no compensation, no fame, no gold. And as he says here, sometimes it's just about when people give and nobody knows. Activities which transcend the everyday monetarily compensated jobs are associated with those who no longer think of personal comfort, who work anonymously for love's sake, and who perceive the eternal arms of an incomprehensible divine godlike being. I think this chapter is one of the most surprising in this book, because he is giving to us a new rule for the performing of our professions. He's saying that we will excel from a divine perspective in our professions when we work beyond the call of duty in the view of the world. When we work, as Emmanuel says, no longer thinking of personal comfort. You know that feeling when people at work ask you to do something else and you say, okay, I will? And somebody says, but how much more are they going to pay? And you say, I don't care. Really? Now you're working for free? Nobody is working for free, because God is giving us life every day. And He is the one. Oh, but you charge for an hour and you work an hour and a half? Because that's needed. If I need to go beyond the call of duty, why not? So professions is about selfless giving, not seeking for personal comfort, going beyond the call of duty, something completely new to us on the earth. Reading this chapter, people may think that Emmanuel is talking about volunteer work. No, he's talking about profession. So the ultimate question for us today is, today is still January 20th, a historic day, but also a historic day for us, inside of ourselves. Maybe first time we're asking this question. How am I performing in my profession? Am I being selfless? Or am I like those people who count the single, I know people who clean something and they say, did you see I clean it? Look how I clean it. Did you see it? Making sure that people see it. And they don't do anything if people won't see it. I don't need to disclose everything I do to people so they know what I'm doing. Do you need it? Because there are people who are like this. And it's unbearable to be around people like this. Because they're constantly saying, did you see I did it? Did you see I did it? And they Facebook it. And they're like, I donated to this person, I donated to that person, I did this and I did that. I'm like, oh my, benefactor of the year. Selfless giving is when, as Emmanuel says, begins where duty ends. Selfless giving begins where duty ends. In this arena of unlimited moral devotion, where those who dedicate themselves to voluntary work, such as the genius who sometimes carries heavy mental reflexes from her remote past and therefore suffers, we also find eminent clergy of all religions, gifted artists, noble inventors of all nationalities, as well as devoted mothers so often suffering, forgotten, and totally ignored throughout the world. Because of them, higher spirituality gradually descends to the human sphere without thought of compensation, fame, or gold. Through total detachment of self in helping others, the soul experiences the sublime mission of alignment with God's will. Do we need to put a trademark on what we need to make sure that people recognize us? In this case, we're trying to be above God, because God already knows. Who else needs to know? Who else needs to know if God already knows? Why do we need to proclaim? Of course, when we use Facebook, it's not about showing ourselves off. It's about sharing. This is the way now people communicate. Some people are not using these tools, and they should. It's charity. It's kindness. It's care for others. And when we post things that are done, it's a report to people, our organizations, etc. The problem is our intention. What do we want to do? Exactly, Patricia. It's about making sure that the other hand doesn't know what the right hand did, right? As the gospel says. You're right, Cesar. We are all guilty of that, right? Unconsciously. Exactly. But we're learning a new way. Hello, Julija. Love your child's learning experience with you. Good job. We feel more secure knowing that you are teaching so well your child. We feel very good. Yeah, unconditionally is very important, Cesar. And do what we have to do. And even if people think, that we're too nice, but we need to do without expecting recognition. Because in our world, unfortunately, no wonder Benjamin Franklin became a spiritist. He did wonderful things on the earth, but he did other things that are, to date, we're still fixing. He says in his autobiography, and I say this with kindness to him because he's teaching us. Ben Franklin, he says in his autobiography that he used to show to others how much he worked more than he actually worked. He had a trick, he said. He would, as a printer, he would have his, I forgot the name, like the little cart with the newspapers. And he said, I knew when people would be by the door of their homes, so I would ride the little newspaper cart around at precisely those times to make people think that I was working harder than I was. Back then, he thought that way, and he was already a genius in humanity. Today, he sees things differently. How many of our guardian angels selflessly give us ideas, write books through us, do beautiful works through us, and we claim we had those ideas, and they are not upset. And they're not like, you see, I'm not going to mentor Vanessa any longer. I give her all my ideas, and she doesn't even acknowledge me. I'm not going to be her guardian angel anymore. Thank you, Mentor Joseph, for not giving up. Even when I don't acknowledge your loving mentorship, your wise mentorship. How about your guardian angel? And Emmanuel tells us in his books that all of the works of goodness in the world come from God. All of it. The author is only one. It's copyrighted, trademarked, God. Through you, through me, through all of us. But it's God's. You plant a flower, he's the author. We're the sower. You create a house, you build a house. Yes, you build it, but God was the author of your idea. Because it's like house for family, either yours or others. When we think that God is the author of everything, is the source of all goodness, and the good, and the beauty, and the truth, it's easy to become selfless. Because it's not us. It has never been, and will never be. It's always God. No illusion, it's us. Some people ask me, Vanessa, how can I be selfless? It's so hard. And Joseph told me this lesson. He said, you know, God is the author, always. You don't need to make an effort. You just relieve your stamp. You are not the author. You are the deliverer. You are the messenger. You are the bridge, the instrument. You're the sower. But the author of the good works is God. Why are we going to be egotistic? It's not worthwhile. Selfless giving begins where duty ends. The chapter wraps up by saying that through total detachment of self in helping others, the soul experiences the sublime mission of alignment with God's will, thus attracting the divine thought that works towards the polishing and ascension of humankind. How are we feeling? How are we feeling? Is it easy or is it too hard? It's easy to be selfless because we're divine. It's the divine imprinting us that produces the beauty, the harmony, the truth, the love. It's not us. I don't need to work hard to make sure people know what we're doing. You know, it's that statement. Just do it. Just do it. Let's just do it. And raise our thoughts to the Creator saying thank you for teaching me and calling me to be your co-pilot. This message is about how our professions are about giving of ourselves and connecting to the higher forces so we can fulfill God's will on earth and produce greater progress on the earth. Today is a special day. It's the day we learn that God is the author of all things. When we come back, in a minute, we're going to turn in the East Coast. It's about society. As we're learning to serve society, we're going to talk about chapter 18, society. And bring it on, Emmanuel. Thank you so much, because we're finally refining ourselves to fulfill what we have to do on the earth. Thank you, Rudy, for your kindness. We feel so happy here tonight. And I do too. And Andrea. And don't forget, tomorrow, as we turn January 21st, at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time at Kardec Radio. We're going to dedicate a special program here at Kardec Radio. We are calling everyone who wants to join forces with us. We're going to spend 1 hour from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time praying for President Trump, praying so he fulfills his mission on the earth. We're inviting you to join us in this task of love and selfless giving.